The sound of dynamite exploding in the street outside Cornelius Fletcher's general store made him drop his carefully arranged display of fine china, sending delicate porcelain crashing to the wooden floor in a symphony of destruction that perfectly matched the chaos about to enter his orderly life forever. It was July 8, 1890, and what should have been the genteel arrival of his mail-order bride had just become a spectacle that would be remembered in Goldfield, Nevada for decades to come. Through his shop window, Cornelius watched in horror as a woman climbed down from the dusty stagecoach, shouldering a canvas sack that was clearly marked with the skull and crossbones warning symbol used for mining explosives. This was supposed to be Victoria Brennan, the delicate seamstress whose refined letters had promised domestic tranquility and feminine grace, but the figure striding toward his store looked more like a battle-hardened prospector than the submissive wife he had spent months preparing to welcome into his carefully controlled world. Cornelius Fletcher had lived his entire 41 years in pursuit of order, predictability, and peaceful commerce that allowed him to avoid the violence and unpredictability that characterized most frontier communities. His general store was a monument to organization and refinement, with merchandise arranged in precise categories and shelves maintained with military precision that reflected his need for control over at least one aspect of the chaotic world surrounding him. At 5 feet 6 inches tall, with thinning brown hair and soft hands that had never held anything more dangerous than a pencil, Cornelius represented everything that traditional frontier masculinity was not, making him the subject of gentle mockery among the miners and cowboys who patronized his establishment while secretly appreciating his fair prices and reliable inventory. The correspondence that had led to this moment had been initiated by Cornelius after years of failed attempts to court local women who invariably preferred the excitement and danger offered by more traditionally masculine men. His letters to the Denver Matrimonial Agency had specifically requested a wife who valued domestic harmony, intellectual conversation, and the security of steady income over adventure and unpredictability. Victoria Brennan's responses had seemed perfect for his needs, describing her skills in sewing, cooking, and household management while expressing her desire to escape the uncertainties of frontier life in favor of stable marriage to a respectable businessman who could provide safety and comfort. The reality now approaching his front door bore no resemblance to the gentle woman whose elegant handwriting had convinced him that he had found his ideal companion. Victoria Brennan stood nearly 6 feet tall with broad shoulders that strained against her travel-worn shirt, muscular arms that spoke of years wielding heavy tools, and a confident stride that suggested someone accustomed to commanding respect rather than seeking protection. Her auburn hair was braided practically rather than styled fashionably. Her face was tanned by outdoor work rather than protected by parasols and bonnets, and her overall appearance suggested someone who would be more comfortable in mining tunnels than drawing rooms. "Cornelius Fletcher, I presume," Victoria announced as she pushed through the store's front door, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had learned to make herself heard over machinery and blasting operations. "I'm Victoria Brennan, and I reckon you're expecting someone a mite different from what you're looking at right now." Her directness was accompanied by an apologetic smile that suggested awareness of the dramatic difference between her letters and her reality, though her tone indicated no intention of apologizing for who she actually was versus who she had pretended to be in their correspondence. The canvas sack she carried released a faint sulfur smell that made Cornelius step backward instinctively, his merchant's nose recognizing the distinctive odor of mining explosives that had no place in a store filled with delicate goods and flammable materials. "Miss Brennan," he managed to stammer, his voice betraying the shock and confusion that were competing with his ingrained politeness in determining how to respond to this extraordinary situation. "Your letters gave me the impression that you were someone with different interests and experiences than what I observed before me." Victoria's laugh, when it came, was hearty and genuine rather than the delicate feminine sound he had imagined from her written descriptions of quiet evenings spent sewing by lamplight. Victoria Brennan set her canvas sack of dynamite carefully beside Cornelius Fletcher's gleaming cash register, the contrast between explosive mining equipment and delicate retail merchandise creating a visual metaphor for the collision of two completely incompatible worlds. At 34 years old, Victoria possessed the weathered confidence of someone who had spent 8 years working in environments where a single mistake could mean death for herself and everyone around her, making the orderly predictability of a general store seem almost laughably safe by comparison. Her calloused hands, stained permanently with copper dust and mining residue, handled Cornelius's fine merchandise with surprising gentleness, though her presence in the refined space created an atmosphere of barely contained energy that seemed to make even inanimate objects nervous. "Mr. Fletcher," Victoria said with the straightforward honesty that frontier mining had taught her was more valuable than polite deception, "I owe you an explanation for the considerable difference between my letters and my actual circumstances. The truth is that I did work as a seamstress for about 6 months when I was 22, but that was before I married Patrick Brennan and discovered that I had a natural talent for mining operations that paid considerably better than needle and thread." Her admission revealed the practical nature that had driven her to emphasize her brief domestic experience, while omitting the years of dangerous work that had shaped her into someone completely unsuited for traditional feminine roles. Cornelius found himself staring at Victoria's muscular forearms, which showed scars from mining accidents and rope burns from handling heavy equipment, trying to reconcile these obvious signs of hard physical labor with the delicate embroidery samples she had described in her correspondence. "Miss Brennan," he said carefully, his natural politeness warring with his growing realization that their entire courtship had been based on fundamental misunderstandings about each other's character and expectations. "Your letters described a quiet woman seeking domestic tranquility, but you appear to be someone accustomed to considerably more excitement and danger than I could ever provide." "That's the complicated part," Victoria replied with a rueful smile that transformed her weathered features into something approaching feminine charm. "After Patrick died in a tunnel collapse last spring, I thought I wanted to escape from mining and return to the peaceful life I remembered from my youth. But 3 months of sitting in a boarding house doing nothing but needlework nearly drove me insane with boredom." Her confession revealed the restless energy that had made her one of the most effective mining partners in the copper fields, someone who thrived on challenge and physical demands that would terrify most frontier women. The explosion that had announced Victoria's arrival continued to generate excitement outside Cornelius's store, as curious townspeople gathered to examine the crater she had created in the middle of Main Street, while demonstrating what she described as a little controlled blast to clear some rocks that were blocking the stagecoach wheels. Her casual attitude toward using dynamite for minor inconveniences horrified Cornelius, who had never witnessed controlled explosions and found the concept of carrying high explosives through populated areas to be fundamentally incompatible with civilized behavior. The fact that she had apparently solved the problem efficiently and safely did not diminish his concern about being married to someone who considered dynamite a practical tool for daily problem-solving. "Miss Brennan," Cornelius ventured hesitantly, "perhaps we should discuss whether our arrangement can work given the obvious differences between your actual interests and the domestic partnership I had envisioned." His diplomatic phrasing could not disguise his growing certainty that marriage to a dynamite-wielding former miner would transform his peaceful existence into exactly the kind of unpredictable chaos he had spent his entire life trying to avoid. Victoria studied his nervous expression with the analytical eye she had developed for assessing dangerous situations in mining operations, recognizing that his fear was based on unfamiliarity rather than genuine incompatibility. "Cornelius," she said, using his first name for the first time and softening her voice to demonstrate that explosives expertise did not eliminate her capacity for feminine consideration. "I understand that I'm not what you ordered through that matrimonial agency, but I think you might be surprised by how useful someone with my skills could be in a business operation like yours." Her words suggested possibilities that Cornelius had never considered, as his sheltered merchant's life had provided no framework for understanding how mining expertise might apply to retail commerce. The conversation that would determine their future was interrupted by the arrival of Sheriff Davidson, who wanted to discuss the legality of detonating explosives on public streets without proper permits. Sheriff Davidson entered Cornelius Fletcher's general store with the weary expression of a lawman who had dealt with every conceivable form of frontier chaos during his 15 years of keeping peace in Goldfield. But the sight of a woman casually standing beside a sack of dynamite while discussing marriage arrangements represented a new category of unusual situation that challenged even his extensive experience. At 52 years old, Sheriff Davidson had learned to approach potentially explosive situations with diplomatic caution, especially when those situations involved actual explosives in the hands of people whose judgment and intentions remained unclear. "Miss Brennan," he said politely, removing his hat while keeping his eyes fixed on the canvas sack that had created the crater currently blocking traffic on Main Street. "I need to ask you about the legal procedures for using mining explosives within city limits." Victoria turned to face the sheriff with the confident composure of someone who had dealt with authority figures throughout her mining career, understanding that cooperation and professional courtesy were more effective than defiance when addressing legitimate safety concerns. "Sheriff Davidson, I apologize for not seeking proper permits before clearing those rocks from the roadway. Where I come from, we handle minor obstacles like that as routine maintenance, but I realize that town regulations might require different procedures." Her response demonstrated respect for local authority while establishing that her use of explosives had been practical problem-solving rather than reckless endangerment of public safety. Cornelius watched the interaction between Victoria and the sheriff with growing appreciation for her ability to navigate complex social situations with the same confidence she apparently brought to dangerous mining operations. Her respectful tone and logical explanation gradually relaxed Sheriff Davidson's initial concern, though he continued to eye the dynamite sack with the wariness that explosive materials deserved regardless of their owner's competence and good intentions. The conversation revealed that Victoria possessed diplomatic skills that complemented her technical expertise, suggesting that her unconventional background might include abilities that could prove valuable in situations Cornelius had never considered. "Miss Brennan," Sheriff Davidson continued, "I've been told that you worked the copper mines up near Virginia City for several years. That's dangerous country with dangerous people, and I'm wondering if your presence in Goldfield might attract attention from folks who remember your husband's operations." His question revealed knowledge of Victoria's background that surprised Cornelius, who realized that his intended bride's reputation extended far beyond the simple seamstress identity she had presented in their correspondence. The sheriff's concern suggested that Victoria's mining career had involved her in activities that might have created enemies or complications that could threaten the peaceful commerce Cornelius valued above all else. Victoria's expression grew serious as she considered the sheriff's legitimate concerns about potential consequences of her past associations with mining operations that had operated in disputed territories where claim jumping and violence were common occupational hazards. "Sheriff, Patrick and I always ran clean operations and never had trouble with other miners or claim jumpers. But you're right that mining country can generate long memories and old grudges. I chose to come to Goldfield partly to get away from that world, but I understand that my reputation might have followed me." Her honest acknowledgement of potential risks demonstrated the kind of practical thinking that had kept her alive in dangerous circumstances, while also revealing that her decision to seek marriage in a peaceful town had been motivated by genuine desire to escape violence rather than simply boredom with domestic life. Cornelius found himself reassessing his initial terror about Victoria's explosive arrival as he began to understand that her mining experience had taught her to think carefully about safety and consequences rather than acting recklessly with dangerous materials. Her conversation with Sheriff Davidson revealed someone who understood legal procedures, respected authority, and considered the welfare of others when making decisions about potentially hazardous activities. These were not the characteristics of someone who would bring chaos and destruction to his orderly business, but rather someone whose unconventional skills might actually enhance their security and prosperity in ways he had never imagined possible. "Victoria," Cornelius said quietly, using her first name for the first time as he began to see her as a potential partner rather than a threat to his comfortable existence. "Perhaps we could discuss how your mining knowledge might actually help improve our business operations here in town." 2 years later, Fletcher's General Store had become the most successful and well-protected business establishment in all of Nevada Territory, thanks to an extraordinary partnership that combined Cornelius's meticulous business management with Victoria's mining expertise and her uncanny ability to solve problems that would have defeated conventional approaches. The timid shopkeeper who had once dropped china at the sound of explosions now worked confidently alongside his wife, as she used controlled blasts to excavate a basement storage facility that tripled their inventory capacity while creating the most secure vault in 3 counties for storing valuable merchandise and customer deposits. Their marriage had evolved from mutual deception into genuine partnership based on complementary skills that neither had understood they possessed until circumstances forced them to combine Victorian-era commerce with frontier mining techniques. Victoria's transformation of their business operations had begun with practical improvements that utilized her engineering knowledge to solve problems Cornelius had never known how to address. Her installation of a pulley system for moving heavy inventory had eliminated the back-straining labor that had limited their ability to stock large items, while her design of reinforced storage areas had ended their losses to theft and weather damage that had plagued frontier merchants for decades. More importantly, her reputation among miners throughout the territory had attracted customers who traveled hundreds of miles to purchase supplies from someone they trusted to understand their specialized needs for equipment, explosives, and technical materials that other merchants could not properly evaluate or safely handle. Cornelius had discovered that his natural talent for organization and customer relations created perfect synergy with Victoria's technical expertise and fearless approach to challenges that would have intimidated traditional business people. Their store now serviced mining operations, railroad construction crews, and government surveying expeditions that required both precision inventory management and specialized knowledge about dangerous materials and frontier conditions. The combination of his refined customer service with her practical problem-solving abilities had established them as the premier supply operation for any enterprise requiring both commercial reliability and technical competence in handling materials that could kill careless users. Victoria's mining connections had also provided them with investment opportunities that Cornelius would never have encountered through conventional business channels, allowing them to become silent partners in several profitable claims while using her expertise to evaluate potential investments that other merchants would have rejected as too risky or technically complicated. Her ability to assess or samples, understand geological surveys, and predict the success of mining ventures had generated profits that supplemented their retail income while building a diversified portfolio that protected them against the economic fluctuations that destroyed single-industry businesses throughout the frontier territories. The couple's success had been highlighted when they were contracted to supply the massive Comstock load expansion project, an assignment that required both Cornelius's ability to coordinate complex logistics and Victoria's knowledge of mining operations that operated on scales that dwarfed anything most merchants had ever encountered. The project had established their reputation throughout the West as suppliers who could handle any challenge, no matter how technically demanding or logistically complex, while maintaining the reliability and customer service that major operations required for success. Their personal relationship had flourished as both discovered that their apparent incompatibilities were actually complementary strengths that created a partnership more effective than either could have achieved independently. Cornelius had found courage and confidence through Victoria's unwavering support and practical approach to problem-solving, while Victoria had discovered that intelligence and careful planning were more satisfying than the adrenaline-based decision-making that had characterized her mining career. Their home, built with mining engineering techniques and furnished with the finest merchandise from their store, had become a gathering place for business leaders throughout Nevada who appreciated the unique combination of refinement and frontier practicality that the Fletcher household represented. As Cornelius and Victoria sat in their beautifully appointed parlor, reviewing architectural plans for expanding their business operations to include a consulting service for mining enterprises throughout the territory, they often marveled at how their mutual deceptions had led to the most authentic and successful partnership either had ever imagined possible. The timid shopkeeper had found strength through love of a remarkable woman, while the explosive miner had discovered that true excitement came from building something permanent and valuable rather than simply surviving dangerous circumstances. Thank you for watching this incredible story of unexpected partnership and how opposites can create perfect harmony. If this amazing tale of how dramatic differences can become complementary strengths touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more unbelievable true stories from the American frontier. What did you think about Cornelius and Victoria's journey from shock to successful partnership? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let us know what other frontier love stories you would like to hear. Do not forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss our weekly uploads of inspiring historical tales that prove love can blossom in the most explosive circumstances.